feel a certain sense of pride.
Mr. Speaker. I call the honourable member Maggie Barry.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise with pleasure to speak to the second reading of the Mount Maunganui Borough Reclamation and Empowering Act repeal bill. Having heard Te Ururoa Flavel, the sponsor of this bill, speak earlier about the history of it and the clear need for redress and putting things right that were wrong. This bill is in an effort to rectify a situation, and it does seem that the repeal of this act is long overdue. As has been referred to by many other speakers in this call so far, there was only one submission to this. And for the benefit of the list MP for Gisborne, who is clearly not paying much attention, this is the person who formerly held the seat and now it's with the Honourable Anne Tolley. I'd like to go over a little bit of the background of it, because when Colin Reader, the chairperson on behalf of Ngā Potiki Tamapahore Trust, and Christine Jones, who was the acting chief executive on behalf of the Tauranga City Council, came before our select committee, she spelt out some of that history, and it really is worth recapping on, because I think this is not an untypical situation. It is one where expediency of the local council took over from common sense for a little while, is how I see it. Looking back to 1972, the Mount Maunganui Borough Council proposed a wastewater scheme that required a substantial reclamation within that area of water. That was then done. But the trouble is that the construction of the oxidation ponds from which that effluent would be temporarily discharged into the Rangatautau River, that discharge would only occur until an ocean outfall was constructed at Papamoa. So it was always going to be a temporary measure. But for Ngā Potiki, and indeed for all of Tauranga Māori, the discharge of human waste into those pristine waters that had served as a very important food resource for them was an utterly repugnant measure. The proposal was particularly abhorrent for Ngā Potiki, as the submitters said to us, and for those on the Select Committee on the day who were paying close attention to what they were saying, because we care about legislation and we do assume that the Select Committee process is taken seriously even by the most languid and lacklustre members of the opposition who sit on the committee. But this proposal was spelt out to us in heartfelt terms. We had a situation where the tangata whenua were particularly vociferous in their opposition to the Mount Maunganui Borough Council's proposal, because what we had was a flourishing ecosystem, Mr. Speaker. It was absolutely flourishing, but the tidal flats would be lost through reclamation. And they claimed that the ongoing effects of the oxidation ponds would be minor. It would appear as if people on the other side of the House have actually woken up. How dare they, says Mr. Williams. Well, he knows all about faux outrage. He's a specialist on it, as I know only too well, on behalf of the lemon trees and Pahutakawas on the North Shore. But that's another story. Let's get back to the 1974 Environmental Impact Report, which stated that that ecosystem and the tidal flats would actually be lost through reclamation. But in fact, that has not proven to be the case. We are very relieved to know that in 1989, the Mount Maunganui Borough Council and the Tauranga District Council, who presented their submission, I thought, with eloquence and a heartfelt passion, decided that those wastewater systems would then become jointly managed. So after about 10 years, they embarked on that consultative process. Yes, these things do take time, but for Ngā Potiki, that reclamation of the foreshore and the seabed, the construction and the presence of the oxidation ponds remained a difficult thing for them. The effluent represents, as they saw it, the failure of the Crown to protect Ngā Potiki. So this is an essential piece of legislation, because once the job has been done, and it has, and everyone agrees that it has, we now look at the repeal of this. And I think with that repeal, there is a certain amount of closure. And the people who stood before us at the Select Committee talked about the vindication that they felt on behalf of their late ancestors, the Ngā Potiki Kaumātua of the 70s and 80s, who had worked tirelessly on this measure. They were people, men and women in their senior years, who as a group over more than 25 years had protested against what they viewed as a shocking invasion of their ancestral landscape and their cultural values. The relationship between Ngā Potiki and the Tauranga City Council had been a good one. It had always been based on mutual respect. This had caused a great strain on that relationship. And as they said, as they detailed the history of it, this was something that needed to be put right, and that they needed to work collaboratively and constructively. And as my colleague, the Honourable Nikki Kay, mentioned earlier, it is a very important thing that collaboration and cooperative ventures were agreed upon in a way that was really very heartening indeed. And I think that the submission really summed up for me, although there was only one of them, it was a very important one. And it put into context the importance of this bill. So Ngā Potiki Tamapahore Trust and the Tauranga City Council both supported this Reclamation Empowering Act repeal bill in its current form because there is no intention for a further reclamation. That has been pointed out by previous speakers. The repeal of the bill will provide, as I've indicated earlier, some vindication to those Ngā Potiki Kaumātua and other members of the community who protested against the original act, because they were not alone in that. And that repeal of the bill will help to heal the past conflicts and to strengthen a relationship now between the iwi and between the Tauranga City Council that was put under enormous strain. So it has been, I think, a long time coming and long overdue, and I look forward to the third reading of this bill, and I think that it is long overdue for the Mount Maunganui Borough Reclamation and Empowering Act repeal bill to be passed. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Paul Goldsmith.